What's up? Welcome to Founders Club. I'm Alex Lagos. Today we have Aleksandra Chojnacka, founder of Detox House. She joins us to share how entrepreneurs can use nervous system regulation to build resilience and show up authentically in life and in business. From navigating the pivot away from signing a commercial lease and running a referral-based in-home studio to launching a digital app and signature 8-week guided program, Alex unpacks the realities of the wellness market. She discusses the polyvagal theory behind cold plunges, breathwork, and saunas, and how mastering your body's response to stress can directly impact your entrepreneurial success. Finally, she explores why trusting your inner voice matters more than market cues and why the future of the wellness industry is rooted in modernizing ancient practices. Let's get into it.
Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited to have you. So for anyone who doesn't know what Detox House is, what is it?
Detox House is a portal for nervous system regulation. And it's a funny question because this, the evolution of Detox House and what it has become, I think it used to be known for cold plunge and breath work and sauna. And everybody has this connotation that I'm a studio. The evolution of Detox House has become a digital product and a tool for people to regulate their nervous systems. And that's because I believe nervous system regulation is the root cause of a lot of dis-ease in the body, whether that presents as mental health or physical health. And so Detox House solves for that problem and gives you the tools you need to connect with yourself in person and digitally.
Okay, wow. So
it's a lot.
A portal for nervous system regulation.
Yeah.
And really excited to hear about that journey and the evolution of going from a studio to a digital product. But before we go there, nervous system regulation, what does that mean?
Yeah, what that means, it's a whole host of things. So there's this disconnect that people have from themselves and their responses and their reaction to things. And it's really developing an emotional mastery over how you respond to stress. So a lot of times people think, I have a lot of stress in my life. And that may be true, but perhaps it's your resilience to that stress that is the issue, because we can't really control external circumstances. We can't control the weather. We can't control how our mom reacts to things. We can't control our partners, but we can control how we respond, and how we respond is rooted in the nervous system. And the nervous system is basically, a set of neural pathways that get formed in early childhood and later on in your life based on certain circumstances, and it dictates how you respond to scenarios in the world, and it dictates your resilience to stress. And Detox House has really been about removing the programming that you no longer need and the programming that no longer serves you, so that you can respond from a grounded and rooted place, respond to stress, respond to life, and really show up as your most authentic self. So yeah, to get scientific about it, nervous system regulation has a lot to do with toning your vagus nerve, which connects, the whole nervous system, and also, really honing in on those responses that are hardwired in the brain, and really focusing on neuroplasticity and how neuroplasticity is, creating hope for the fact that people can change, and making sure that you're stepping into these new identities of yourself that you want to step into and no longer are hijacked by your emotions and hijacked by these responses that have been hardwired in you. So yeah, in a nutshell, nervous system regulation is working with the body, the physical body, to build more resilience to stress and to create new responses to things, responses that you would like versus responses that you are just comfortable and used to.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful explanation. Thank you, Alex. And just as a therapist, I'll also add that we have our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight response. And through training or toning, like you said, that I think 10th cranial nerve, is that the vagus nerve, that runs from our brain right down through our gut, you know, that's why we have that like gut brain connection and everything as well. We can create an evolutionary response that makes us feel safer in our bodies. Because really, like, who discovered all this was Stephen Porges, who is, you know, the founder of polyvagal theory. And he realized that, you know, reptiles, they have a certain way that they react, you know, when they're met with a threat. And actually humans have evolved to develop, is it the ventral vagal system?
Ventral
vagal system, which ultimately allows us to feel safe in connection. And so really creating that sense of safety in our body through either what we call autoregulation or co-regulation, you know, either regulating by ourselves or through others. And that's actually where therapy is so helpful. But I imagine some of the things that you do with breath work, with cold plunge, with sauna, and I'd love to hear all the other ways that we can regulate our nervous systems, are ways that we can help ourselves feel safe in our body when we're experiencing things like anxiety or depression, what we call, you know, that sort of being out of the window of tolerance, either activated or deactivated, or hyperactivated, I should say, hyper aroused. So it's a fascinating and really popular and current space in the wellness world right now. And I think what's really interesting is it kind of turns on its head all of this like mindset stuff that's all about just like, oh, think differently, think positively, you know, do the work that's about, you know, the thought work, because this actually begins with the body and then the thoughts come afterward.
I think both work hand in hand. You heal the mind with the body and you heal the body with the mind. Obviously the mind-body connection is very, very real, and polyvagal theory is at the crux of what I do at Detox House, and it's been so important to understand how we move through states, how we move through freeze. So funny enough, in a cold plunge is this controlled stressor where you get to witness the human moving through all the different, states of the nervous system. So freeze to fight or flight to rest and digest and connect. And as you mentioned, humans have evolved to be able to connect with one another and to be creative. We're not in survival mode anymore. And this is where, speaking of Founders Club and everything, we get to be creative. We get to create things, create businesses, but we can't really do that from a place of survival. Totally. We can't do that from a place of freeze. And so what's really interesting about polyvagal theory too is like, it's not an on and off switch. It's not like I'm either in fight or flight or I'm in rest and digest. It's a constant movement of the three, and building a resilient nervous system is about flexibility. It's about being able to notice when you're in one of those states and get yourself out of it. And also just acknowledge that you might be in one of those states and just say, you know what, I'm okay with like being in freeze today, and I need it. Obviously, you don't want to stay in fight or flight for too long. Again, the body is not in a healing mode there. It's not in a connection mode. And as humans, we really need that connection and like just the, allowing our bodies to hit that equilibrium state so we can do all the things we want to do and feel the joy. So nervous system regulation is about building that flexibility between those states, building that resilience so you can see, how different scenarios can activate those different parts of you. So for example, before I started doing this work, I would get activated and I would find myself in fight or flight for a very prolonged period of time based on something somebody said to me, because in my brain, I detected that as a threat, like, oh my God, this means I don't belong and I'm gonna die, literally. And I was stuck in that fight or flight loop, and then my food doesn't digest, I don't sleep. There's all these physical effects. And then there's a mental health aspect of being in fight or flight, right? You can't connect with another human. You're missing that connection.
Totally.
And, there's different implications, and you probably know way more than me on the different implications of being in dorsal vagal where you're in freeze, and that usually comes with depression. People who don't want to leave their house, people who don't want to socialize, they don't want that connection. They'd rather just cocoon because it's safer to just not be in fight or flight. And that is their safety. And they build a bubble around themselves, and they don't live in the world. They can't live in the world because they're stuck in freeze, and they're just
totally. That's that sort of like reptilian, like base, original, like oldest kind of primal
Yeah.
strategy is freeze. And then the one up from that is the mammalian, and not ventral vagal. What's the other one besides dorsal vagal? I can't remember,
Yeah,
but anyway,
but
it's,
it
you know,
goes-
whatever
yeah.
the next one is there.
Yeah.
This is from mammalian that like is fight or flight that
Yeah, that's
animals,
fun.
mammals
Yeah.
do, right?
Yeah.
And then from there is this sort of social, connected, like what we have evolved to be able to do, where we
Yeah.
can have that nervous system regulation.
I think it's just I call it fight or flight. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really, like, it's interesting because, you know, so many people have trauma, right?
Yeah.
Like that is really at the core of so many people's maladaptive reactions, and
Yeah.
they're kind of like quick shift into that fight or flight or freeze, as opposed to being able to stay in that larger window of tolerance. And it sounds like what you're doing through some of these nervous regulation techniques is helping people build their window of tolerance. So it gets wider, it gets bigger. And so people are able to handle stress more.
Yeah.
And then that way they're not as likely to be in that hyperactivated state where, yes, they're not sleeping and feel so anxious and feel like they're going to die. Or, you know, in that really shut down state where it's like everything is slow and hard and they're lethargic and foggy and like just so depressed, right? So let's talk about some of the techniques. Like, what are some of the things that you do to increase that window of tolerance?
Cold plunge is a favorite because it's the fastest way to do that. It's the fastest way to show your body how it's okay in fight or flight. Like, you're not going to die in these circumstances that the body registers as dangerous. So to your point, we have trauma, and our trauma initiates this survival response. And it's very different for every individual, right? I'll just talk from personal experience, but in my experience, some of my childhood traumas have activated my fight or flight because I think, oh, I don't belong here, therefore I will be ostracized, therefore I won't survive. And so it's super, super primal, and it doesn't always make the most logical sense, right?
No.
And so, but that's how, like, pairing this with therapy is really powerful, because you gain the insights and you gain the understanding of, like, oh, this is why this is happening. And this makes so much sense given my, environment and given all the things, all the stimulus around me. But then you have to register that insight into the body, knowing that it's okay, and open up those neural pathways to create new neural pathways. So if the old one was, I am not safe to be myself. Being in my true authenticity meant other people would shame me, would shut me down, would shut me out, would leave me, would abandon me. And so now I have this belief of it is not safe to be myself running through my entire body. And I understand, I got to that belief through work with a therapist, or through breath work, which bridges the conscious and the subconscious, and you can gain insights into your psyche there. Dream work I do a lot of. If some people remember their dreams, I think your brain processes a lot of emotions in your REM sleep, and if you can remember those dreams, they provide like juicy insight into like what may be going on, the fears that you have. So using any of those tools, breath work, to gain those insights and say, okay, this is this belief system that I have in my body, living in my body, and I respond to life through this belief system. Therefore, I'm not going to go out there and be my truest self, because I'm always going to be scared of exposing myself fully because I'm afraid of that abandonment. And so therefore I don't expose myself fully. Therefore I don't connect with other humans. I don't build intimacy. All of those things are affected by that. And business success is very affected by that. People can smell like BS a mile away. If you're not showing up as your 100% true authentic self, like if you are showing up that way, a business can thrive, and then you're doing things that light you up. And so it has this like domino effect on your life. And so going back to how these tools address that, right? So like taking this belief that I discovered through therapy and breath work, and then rewiring that in either a sauna or cold plunge. So sauna and cold plunge are both really, really useful tools for release and for just witnessing how your body can rewire a response. Cold plunge in general has the ability to, I think all of these tools have the ability to basically take your default mode network in the brain and kind of shut that off. So your ruminating mind is turned off a little bit. So you're deeply, deeply present. You have no choice but to be super present in a cold plunge. And then your body's in fight or flight. And so by using the breath to guide yourself back into safety, sometimes you might go into freeze, literally, and like figuratively, right? Like I see people who are just like in the cold plunge, just like white knuckling their way through, and they're like, I just got to get through this. And I'm like, okay, this is going to hurt your nervous system even more. I've got to get you into safety in this cold plunge.
Yeah.
We've got to move into that state so that your brain can register, I'm okay.
Yes.
And that vagus toning happens. So the toning of the vagus nerve, the resilience building can happen. And then you leave the cold plunge and you show up in life and you're able to more quickly get into the safety, the rest and digest, the connection part of the nervous system without getting stuck in fight or flight for so long. So the training in the cold plunge kind of builds that flexibility because you're witnessing literally every phase of the nervous system, the dorsal, the, again, the fight or flight, and then your safety.
Yeah. So a couple of things there. So first of all, for anyone who doesn't know, the default mode network is sort of the judgment center of the brain. So that's where like the ego is, if you want to call it that, but also self-criticism and whatever we might be judging ourselves. So being able to release that and be fully present is so important for this work. And then also, I guess what I'm hearing is that through that training in the cold plunge, we're able to notice those that feeling of dysregulation in our body and bring ourselves into a state of regulation. So feeling unsafe in our body and be able to, in the moment, be like, I am safe, right? Yeah. Which, can also be achieved through, the discomfort in yoga or sauna or being outside when it's hot or cold, or any kind of meditation where we resist the itch or whatever it is. But ultimately, it's this sort of conscious choosing of safety and reminding ourselves of safety when we feel discomfort. And that is so helpful in our everyday life because, if we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling rejected or frustrated or angry or whatever, to be able to notice what's happening in our body and be able to be like, I'm safe. It's okay. And it's interesting how you mentioned the belonging piece, because yes, as humans, it is so evolutionary to just want to belong. We need to belong for survival and for the proliferation of the human race. And so we are so hyper attuned to cues of rejection, or abandonment, which I very much relate to. And I think anyone who has some form of relational trauma, but even if you don't, in our world that is full of social media telling us that we're not good enough constantly, we are sent the message that we need to be perfect to belong, right? And what's so sad, which you just acknowledged, is actually it's the opposite. I think actually you were the one who said to me years ago something along the lines of there's no intimacy in perfection. There's no connection in perfection. And really we connect through being our imperfect, authentic selves. And so we have all these people out there right now who are trying to, look like the latest influencer and act perfectly and, never show a difficult emotion and things like that. And it's so disconnecting. And what it sounds like part of what you teach people is to be able to be in their authentic self, but also notice where they might be telling themselves that they're rejected or that people don't like them out of a place of protection.
Yes.
And actually still go toward the connection, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah. Do it scared and do it if it's hard. And that's what the cold plunge teaches you, because it's so interesting to watch. And I'll talk about the sauna and the breath work, because those are the other modalities that I use at Detox House. And these modalities really, again, help you build that connection to self so that you can show up fully. But I do think they also have a downstream effect on, again, mental health and physical health. Because like I said earlier, the ability to connect with humans is a beautiful dose, to your brain and to your just mood and everything. And then if you're not connected to your body, there's a whole host of symptoms. And if you're not resilient to stress, there's a whole host of physical symptoms that show up, right? Like autoimmunity. Chronic pain, all the things. And I'll talk about that a little later. But to your point, I think the showing up as your fullest self in a cold plunge is so interesting, because it literally only takes 5 minutes, right? You have this experience where I guide people, and even before they get in, they stare at the water and they're like, I'm already so scared, and I'm already my heart is palpitating, and why am I so scared? I'm like, that's so perfect. Your body is responding perfectly. The primal response in the body is you detect a threat. The body already knows that water is too cold for you. And so it sends you into fight or flight. And so it's that's a metaphor for life. Your partner tells you, hey, we need to talk. You're in fight or flight. Okay, I noticed the cold water. Now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I have to go have that difficult conversation. So I'm going to breathe through it. And I'm going to breathe through. I guide people in breathwork before they step into the cold plunge. They step into the cold plunge. That cold plunge is that difficult conversation. Yeah. Are you going to freeze in that conversation? Are you going to go into fight or flight? Maybe both. And those are actually really typical things because your body's trying to protect you.
Yeah.
And the goal is not to not do that.
Yeah.
We're human. We're not going to be robotic. But the goal is to get back into safety as fast as possible. Right. And so I see my regular people who, I have a residency at Soho House, so I'm there every single Monday, and there's some regulars that come in, and I see how their response has shortened just over like 3 months of doing this. It's like it used to take them 1 minute. Typical time is 1 minute of being in fight or flight. It's like, if anyone has had to get up on stage and give a speech, your like heart is pounding for that first, minute or so. And then you're like, and then you find your groove.
Totally.
Again, in that difficult conversation, you're like, oh my God, what is he going to say? Or what is she going to say? Like, and then you finally find your groove. And I think the whole point is, don't like show up as like your truest self so you can actually say what you mean and you can feel like connected to your intuition and connected to your voice so that you can have a more fruitful connection with somebody, or you can have a better experience on that stage. You can do things in life and experience all that life has to offer without shutting down, without being scared and be like, nope, I'm not going to do that. Nope, I'm not going to connect with that person. No, I'm not going to speak on stage. I'm too scared. Like all these things allow you to miss out on a lot of the like richness of life. Yeah. And so in that cold plunge, you're literally witnessing yourself being like, okay, this is scary. And then everyone's like, wow, that was really cool. Like not as bad as I thought. And like
empowering, I would imagine too,
so
right? Like,
empowering.
wow, if I could do that, like there's so much more that I can do. And it sounds to me, Alex, like it's such a form of meditation, right? Like
totally. It forces you into it.
Of these opportunities for stepping into discomfort are forms of meditation. And if we can be in our body and like notice what's happening, I mean, that's really the training. A lot of people think meditation is about being calm and relaxed and like making your mind clear. And that's not what meditation is at all. Meditation is about awareness. Yeah. And it's interesting. Like I think of my journey and, I had done my master's in psychology by the time I was like 24, and I was struggling deeply with disordered eating and depression and anxiety and perfectionism. And it wasn't until I was I was injured from over exercising and I had to do yoga. That was the only thing I was allowed to do based on my physical therapist. And yoga was my cold plunge. Yoga was this incredibly uncomfortable experience for me where you're holding like lizard pose or another deep hip opener. And like, it's so uncomfortable and you just want to make it stop and you have to learn how to breathe through that. Yeah. And, I think there are so many people who could benefit from these forms of nervous system regulation as you describe. And so before we get into the sort of evolution of Detox House, I'm curious, what was your, in a couple of minutes, like what was your personal connection to all of this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I alluded to it a little bit, but I, definitely have my own trauma, whether you want to define that as like big, everyone's different. Anyway, so on my own health journey, it really started when I was in college. I was feeling chronic fatigue and to the point where it was like not normal. And I didn't know, I don't think back then people had the words to explain it as they do now. And there wasn't this like clear understanding of what the body was doing. And so my body felt like a heavy piece of machinery. It was different than being tired. Being tired and chronic fatigue are very different things. I wasn't tired. I was experiencing like carrying a heavy weight. And I was like, what is this? No energy, no vitality. And as like a 19-year-old, like you're supposed to be like your most vital.
Totally.
And experience, have the college experiences that everybody, wants to have. And so I was already kind of feeling this like something is off here mode. And I would go on for about like 5 to 6 years, in and out of doctors, everybody kind of telling me I was fine and it was in my head. And like, it's so interesting because I hear that a lot with people's health journeys and they were right. It is in my head, like, but it's not what they really meant. Like I wasn't making it up.
Yeah, and it's in your body too.
But it's in my body and it was in the mind. But the cause of that, all of that was nervous system work. And I didn't get there until I experienced my first breath work. So I did go on a journey of using food as medicine, which definitely made an impact. And I think it's a beautiful gateway to these things. And I saw such a difference using food as medicine. But it was about 10 years ago where I met Wim Hof at a conference. And I was like, who is this crazy person? And I don't know, for anyone who doesn't know who Wim Hof is, he's this Dutch man who basically made cold plunging and like breath work and cold plunging very popular in the last 10 years. And I think kind of set off this trend. Even though it's a very ancient modality, he modernized it a bit. And so I met this man, and he's standing in front of us, and there's we're in a room of 100 people at this conference, and we're breathing with him, and I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, are we supposed to be like hyperventilating? Like, what is going on here? But I'm doing it, and I just feel something like click in my brain, in my body, almost to the point where like you feel like, I don't know anything about cars, but this analogy kind of makes sense to me. It's like this muffler on the car that made a lot of noise, but I didn't notice because it was just like, oh, it's just a loud car. And then it kind of dies down, and now you have like this like smooth Tesla. And I'm like, oh, what the hell was that? Like I went from like being loud in my body to finally this like the stillness, and I felt that. And it's like hard to explain, but I was like, oh my God, there's something here. And my neighbor at the time, I was living in San Francisco, he was very into that work, and he was cold plunging for chronic pain. And so I'd go to his house and witness the cold plunges. I'm like, okay, I think I have to do this too if it helps with the breath work, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what Wim Hof was talking about. And so I started these modalities, and I was just like, whoa, this is a massive change in how I'm showing up, because I used to be very activated, like very regularly. I mean, it was like, I didn't notice, but I was living the majority of my day in fight or flight. And if I wasn't in fight or flight, I was in freeze, because I didn't know how to get into safety and connect.
Yeah.
And I would just remove all the triggers, as some people like cut people out of my life. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't be in the world because it's too triggering for me. And so I would go into like the cocooning phase or the fight or flight phase. And I didn't know how to it didn't last very long. Luckily, like when I was in that is when I met Wim Hof, and I was like, oh my God, this is really great. And so, yeah, I think that was my journey into these modalities. And then for a long time, I knew I was going to start my own business. I think that was always in me. I think you just know if you have an entrepreneurial spirit. And I just knew from a very early age, and I went to business school early on in my life.
With the intention of gaining the skills to start your own business?
Yes. Yeah, I never went to business school thinking, oh, I'm going to like make it in corporate America. Yeah. Even though that was my stepping stone, and I worked for companies like Accenture and like really big Microsoft, really big companies, really big corporate entities, and tons of experience there. But I went to business school in my early 20s with the intention of like, I'm going to need these skills one day because I want to do my own thing. I just don't know what that thing is, and no idea. And then as I got into this world of health and wellness, again, the idea was, okay, now I want to be an entrepreneur, and now I know I'm going to be a health and wellness entrepreneur, but I still had no idea what that meant. I was like, do I become an influencer? Do I become a nutritionist? I studied nutrition, and I was like, oh, okay, great. Maybe I'll do this. And I saw a couple of clients, and I was like, no, this isn't really my thing. And so Detox House was really born out of a beautiful, I'm going to get emotional because I'm super sensitive, but was really
emotional here.
Yeah. Was really born out of a conversation with my best friend, who is no longer with us. She was a psychologist, brilliant girl, Stanford PhD. And we were like the perfect pairing because she was very down to earth, grounded, rooted in science. And I was always she was always like, I just like love your like I always was fascinated with the mystical, with the things that science couldn't explain. I would always like poke holes into things that she was talking about. And she did a lot of work. She was a therapist. She worked with veterans. She worked with couples. She was actually a sex therapist. She took on a lot of Esther Perel's clients, for anyone who knows anything about Esther. So Jess and I would oftentimes have these conversations around how do we bring together the mind and the body? Because she was also very fascinated with the body, right? She was a Pilates instructor. She like knew that she would leave her body a lot. And when I moved to Nashville, we were wanting to do something together and bridge this gap between mind and body. And then she got sick, so we weren't able to do this together. But throughout her journey, and throughout my journey, kind of thinking about like, how am I supposed to bring these things together? And then I looked into the modalities I was using. I was like, well, I've been doing breath work and sauna and cold plunge. They have been the constant because I've tried a lot of things. Like in biohacking, there's so many trends, and some of them stick around and some of them don't. And I think what stuck around for me, it had been already 10 years of using sauna, cold plunge, and breath work to bridge the mind and body and to get me to this place where I was like living my best life. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to combine these three, and I'm going to call it Detox House because the crux of all of it is I do believe that our body already has all the answers, already has everything that we need. So what if we just like remove the things that are in the way? So like breath work is an emotional release practice. Remove the emotions that you no longer need. Cold plunge is like the resilience practice. Sauna is like a literal physical detox. I mean, they're all detox. You detox 80% of toxins through the breath. Saunas, obviously you're sweating out the toxins. Cold plunge also elicits it stimulates your lymphatic system. So it helps with drainage. So on a physical level, these are all detoxification tools. But on an emotional and spiritual level, they create space for who you really are and like that connection to self. And so I was like, okay, this is it. So like I went from, I know I want to be an entrepreneur. I know I want to be a health and wellness entrepreneur. I know I want to do something with like mind-body connection. And then like, ding, 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 here it is. These are the things that are tried and true for me. These are the tools that I have been using and I know I will use forever. And this is how it's going to like evolve. And so, yeah, I started out with just wanting to maybe open a physical space with these modalities. And that's how Detox House started.
And so what did that physical space or product look like initially?
Yeah, so this is the fun part. And this is my advice to entrepreneurs too. It's like, there's a lot of people ask me this, a lot of people who are like, oh, how did you start? I'm thinking of starting something, but I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what to do yet. And my advice would just be to start trying things. And throughout this whole journey, I was trying things. Like in the nutritionist phase, I was like, okay, I'll do some one-on-one client work. Didn't like it. So anyway, beginning of Detox House was I'm going to open up a space and it's going to be in my house because I had this perfect space. Yeah. I already had a cold plunge, had a sauna, and it would fit 2 to 3 people in there. And it was perfect in how it was arranged in my home. So I'm going to open up an in-home studio. I was very inspired by this woman who started an in-home Pilates studio during COVID, and it was referral-based only. Okay. So, it's your home. Yeah. You don't want to let people in. So I was like, great, I'll copy what she's doing. Perfect. Start a referral-based only program. You can come to my house, use these modalities. I'll guide you through it. I'll do guided breath work, cold plunge. But you need a referral code. And that's how I started. And I would market through friends of friends and through influencers, because it's what I know. I've been in influencer marketing for 15 years. And so did that for about a year, thinking that like this would be the business. It would be a physical space and I would just guide people through it. And then in that meantime, I got an SBA loan. I got about $500,000 approved to open up a physical space in Nashville.
And just to jump in for one moment, Alex, I would imagine that in having that space in your home, it was an opportunity to prove out the concept, right?
Totally.
So for a lot of people, for anyone listening who's like, I've got this idea, but like, I don't know if I want to invest like all this money in a physical space and, a lease and furnishing a space or doing a build out or like all of the things that, I know you were considering doing at one point. What a brilliant idea to be able to be like, let's just make sure that this actually has legs, right? Before investing in it further. Yeah. So, okay. So it sounds like you proved out the concept. You're like, okay, this makes sense. This does have legs. Yes. And then what?
Yes. And so for anybody listening to, $100 Startup is a really great book that will guide you through like minimal cost investment so you can prove out a concept.
Yeah.
Proving out a concept is twofold, right? You want to see if there's a market for it and not just your friends. And you want to see if you like doing it. And so so those are the two things where I actually, funny enough, like the market was there. And then the like for doing it for me was not. And that was a hard thing to just admit because I was like, oh, this could be so good. And like, there's all these places that are crushing it in Nashville,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
And in other places, LA, Pause, which is now in Nashville too. Pause, and here in Nashville we have some local businesses that were doing, similar things, offering a space for people to come in and do sauna specifically is where we started, and then some places started offering cold plunge. Not a ton of places doing breath work though, so that was like my unique addition to the modalities. But anyway, went through the process of finding a lease, almost signed a lease. And
did you know at the time when you were about to sign the lease, like you weren't sure you really liked it?
Yes.
Like so I imagine that there was a lot of conflict in that.
So
right?
much conflict. And a part of me, and I was using these modalities to work on myself too, because I couldn't tell whether my nervous system was just not expanded enough. So, right, like if you're not, here's the thing, right? Like my uncle is an entrepreneur, but like, again, being expanded to understand if something's possible for you is really, really important. And I just was questioning whether or not I was there.
Right. Like what you're wondering if it was more like a confidence thing versus
or just like a lack of experience thing.
Or lack of experience,
right?
yeah.
Like I don't have any experience owning a studio.
Right.
I mean, I ran it out of my house for a year, but like that's very different than dealing with a 10-year lease and a build out and contractors, like out of my element. So part of me was like, am I just scared? And I kept thinking, just do it scared, do it scared, do it scared. Or am I just out of alignment here?
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. Like just this idea of resistance, right? Like when we experience resistance within ourselves and tapping in and being like, is this fear? Like, is it still aligned with my values? And I want to do the thing, I want to go toward it, but I'm just scared of failure or judgment or it being hard or whatever it is. Or is this actually out of alignment from my values? And, with perfectionism, which is my area of expertise, we often there's something that we really value that we want to go toward, but we're actually like holding ourselves back from it because of fear of failure, all those sorts of things. So it sounds like in your case, that was not what was going on. It was out of alignment.
It was out of alignment, but it was really hard for me to admit that.
Yeah.
I literally gave myself the story of like, I'm just afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And I'm not only afraid to fail, but I'm just like afraid this is too big for me. Like I can't hold it. Like this is out of my element. I'm out of my element here. I have no experience doing this. So it took, again, using my tools to make sure that I was like really being true to myself. And then when I realized this is out of alignment, this is not what Detox House is, or maybe in the future will be, but like right now I need to focus on building out I have an app that's guided, and there's all these, again, from also just assessing the market, looking at the local market and seeing all these other places start opening up. Lolu, Framework, Bathhouse is coming. So looking at that and understanding like, is this unique enough? And if not, then it's like a first to market game.
Right. Yeah.
And I could be like, this could happen fast. And I was actually first to market in Nashville for sure. And I could have leveraged that. But I'm like, is this really what I want to be doing? No. What I really want to be doing is helping people regulate their nervous systems and have these experiences where they're coming back to self. And that doesn't necessarily have to happen in a space. If all these places are opening, then I could just layer myself on top of them.
Totally.
And there's this digital aspect to the business where I have guided cold plunges, guided sauna sessions, guided breath work on this app that I offer. And they could take this anywhere they go, and they can take this to any space, and they don't even have to take it. They can be, in LA or in New York, and they can do this work without me having to manage a physical space, because what's in alignment for me is to create this content.
Right.
And so that was where I was like, okay, I'm not signing this lease. And it was just like, and I closed my in-home studio.
Yes.
And the only in-person things that I do now are retreats I do a lot of executive retreats. I did a Soho House retreat this summer, and I have my residency at Soho House, which I love because, again, I love to practice the craft.
Yes.
No matter what, like, I need to make sure I'm seeing what's out there in the collective and witnessing people doing this work and continuously learning more about this work. Like, again, this, I didn't get my master's in psychology. That's what Jess was for in this business, but it's fine. But I'm fascinated by the neuroscience behind it, and I'm fascinated by my own experience with it. And I'm like, okay, there's still so much I have to learn, but it's here. Like, there's something here. And so, like, practicing my craft, witnessing these people have these experiences, and then evolving my business into that support system for people. And so now what the business looks like is I have a signature 8-week program where I take people through 8 weeks of breath work. And the breath work is specifically guided in a way. I created this method called the Embodied Freedom Method, which is based on these tools like polyvagal theory. It's based on the work of Dr. David R. Hawkins, which I'm a huge fan of. It's based on the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and kind of combining all of these tools to help us remove the emotional pressure and get back to ourselves and rewire some of these limiting beliefs that we may have.
And this is on the app that you have the program?
It's online, so it's guided by me, so it's not on the app.
Okay, so you're
the app is a support.
Got it. Okay.
This is a real-time program.
Okay.
The students in the 8-week program use the app.
Okay.
In between sessions.
So I would imagine, different demographic. You were going through a referral program previously, or a different acquisition strategy, I guess I should say. So what has that looked like moving toward now casting a wider net? And I would imagine reaching potential clients worldwide.
It's a totally different strategy, right? And it's I think what I'm working through now, so you're getting this evolution in real time. This is very new. This just happened this summer. So in August, I launched the State Shift program, which is the 8-week program. And I decided this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on this digital product. The app is complementary to that, but it also can stand alone if people just want to get, dip their toes in the water and see, like, what does a guided cold plunge look like, guided breath work, all of that, and have that in their pocket. And they can do that at their own pace. But the 8-week program is real time. It's a real time container. So it's digital, but it's, we meet every week for an hour and a half to go through this. And so that just literally came to life in August, and it's
Amazing.
A totally different strategy. With a space, I was like, this is perfect because I have 15 years of experience in influencer marketing and partnerships too. So I'm leveraging everything that I learned in my corporate career to help build this business, but it's a very different approach to getting people to sign up for memberships and getting people to physically visit a space, right?
Totally. What's been working and what hasn't been working?
So what's been working really well, and I haven't tried a lot of paid media yet, but I am about to. But I think what's been working is free webinars.
Okay.
Yeah, to get people to understand what this work is all about. And the webinars have been around, emotional mastery and managing your nervous system, and coming from like my own personal experience of that. I think the biggest thing that's been working is honestly, again, referrals from clients that I've already been working with. So Soho House has been really beautiful in giving me that access. So I'm part of Soho House Health Club with Dr. Raul Iyengar, who's a functional doctor here, and then Danielle Palladino, who is a nutritionist and fitness coach. And doing the health club has also allowed me to get some people interested in working with me. Doing the guided cold plunges at Soho House has also been really great because we get people like from all over. It's not people visit Soho House as a hotel. So that's been really, really great, but it's still very new for me. So I'm now in the process of really honing in on like, okay, partnerships have been working really well.
Yeah.
Anything that's complementary, right? Because this work is so complementary to, like, for example, a functional doctor who takes your blood work and your tests and is like, your cortisol levels are through the roof and your sleep is off. You need some nervous system regulation practices, and therefore here's Detox House.
Great.
So partnerships have been really wonderful.
So there still are those sort of trusted referrals. It sounds like they're just coming a different way.
Yes.
So, and I would imagine your brand has really evolved, right? Like gone from really like cold plunge and sauna, right? To now this digital product and this course or this offering, this 8-week offering. And so what has that been like for you to sort of, because I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, like that's scary to be like, I'm going to evolve and I might lose my current audience or confuse my audience. I think we're taught so much about like, you have to be super ultra specific and know where you're going to be or where you want to be 10 years from now. And, I think I certainly have evolved my brand like significantly over the years, and it continues to evolve and evolve and evolve every couple of years. I kind of get bored with what I'm doing, but so what has that been like for you? And do you have any advice for entrepreneurs who might be afraid of, taking a similar path?
Yeah, it's been really interesting because, like I said before we started recording, I used to be known and still kind of am as the cold plunge girl.
Right.
Like cold plunge was definitely associated heavily with the Detox House brand, cold plunge and sauna, and people just knew that. And for me, it's honestly, again, this work is all about aligning to self. And so just practicing what I preach. And the hardest part was admitting the truth to myself. Admitting that like, okay, cold plunge is a really great tool. To your point, you use yoga for that, right?
Totally.
So the brand is not a cold plunge brand, even though everybody knows me for that. The brand is a nervous system regulation tool, an emotional mastery tool, nervous system expansion. You can do that in a lot of different ways. In fact, I just went on a retreat in Mexico. It was a nervous system reset retreat for 5 days. And they gave us all the modalities to try. And it included cold plunge, breathwork, tension release, meditation, mindfulness, different modalities for this work, yoga. And you kind of just choose what resonates with you. And for me, yes, what resonates the most for me is breathwork, number one. Like that is through and through. And cold plunge is just like a conduit for breathwork. Sauna is just a conduit for breathwork. But these are tools I use personally. So these are things like these are modalities that I really, really love, but it's not about the modality. It's about where we're like what we're doing with these tools. Right. And so what we're doing is, again, coming back to self, coming back to this regulated state where you can rest and digest and connect with others and feel healthy in your body and have this vitality and eliminate your chronic pain symptoms and your whatever symptoms your body is exhibiting through this work. And so just kind of making Detox House bigger. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I'm no longer cold plunge girl. Like I'm still cold plunge girl. And it's still part of the brand, but it's just become bigger than that. So I needed to make sure the branding and the messaging reflected that. The messaging was the biggest part. The messaging is the most important part, I think. And I'm still working through that. So you're seeing this raw process. You're seeing Detox House evolution in the making right now because I'm still working through the messaging.
Well, it's interesting because it what I hear when you share all that is like the what and the why have remained the same. It's the how that has changed.
Yes.
So it has always been about nervous system regulation, even when maybe you weren't using that language initially, right?
Correct,
but that's still what you were getting at, that sense of the muffler, being quieted. And, I know for me, like, I remember through yoga, like experiencing peace for the first time. Like, this is what peace, this is when people talk about feeling peaceful. I did not know what this feeling was. And I get it now. Right. And so it sounds like that has always been the case. That's always been the common thread, but it's just the how that it has changed. And I mean, I think that is to be able to evolve is such an important skill for any entrepreneur, to pivot, to not be attached to something having to look a certain way. So do you have any tips for anybody who might be afraid of that kind of evolution or thinking something's not working and that means that the whole thing isn't going to work, that their how isn't working and so then the why doesn't work? Like what has allowed you to be able to be open to that evolution?
Building trust in yourself. I think that's the biggest piece. I think when this work has helped me build more trust in myself. I think what it comes down to is if as an entrepreneur, you're listening to, you might be listening to market cues, you might be listening to investors. If you want investors, you might, be pitching for investment and people have advice on the way you're doing your business. And don't get me wrong, you need to know where you lack expertise and you should pull that in for sure. But no matter what, like the decision is here. And if you trust your intuition, if you trust that you're out of alignment or something is more in alignment with you, being able to listen to that inner voice and being able to trust that inner voice and not ignore it, I think is the biggest piece of advice that I would give to any entrepreneur is learn how to trust your instincts.
Amazing.
Learn how to trust yourself.
Instincts. So wellness trends, where do you see them going in the next 5 years? What can we look out for, do you think?
Oh my God, I was just talking about this in Mexico. I think 2026 is going to be the year of peptides.
Yeah.
Everyone's on a peptide journey.
Yeah.
Honestly, here's, again, not to continuously like bring it back to myself and Detox House, but the reason why I love sauna, cold plunge, and breathwork is because they're these like tried and true ancient modalities. I think there's going to be a trend of going back to basics, going back to these like ancient modalities that really have worked, and making them more modernizing them. I mean, we already see it, right? Like I just was in Mexico and did a temazcal ceremony, which is this beautiful Mexican ritual that incorporates sweat lodge, and you have businesses like Othership and Lolu kind of emanating that ritual, that process. This is a very ancient modality, but now look how modern it's becoming, and what Othership has like $14 million in funding. So it's a cue from the market that there's demand for these experiences, but they're built on ancient practices. So I don't think it's like anything like totally new. I mean, obviously peptides, yes. But I'm here for the modernizing these ancient practices and like going back to basics and human connection, mental health. I think, again, just nervous system regulation has been a trending topic too. So people are starting to realize how important it is and how important the mind-body connection is. It's kind of wild because I think we live in a bubble and we think this is obvious to everyone, but in some of the work that I've been doing, I see like the masses still don't get it.
Yeah.
And I think the future will be more of like this grasping and really understanding that like you're not digesting your food because it's not about what you're eating. Your food is perfect. It's about your state of being when you're eating that food. And I think more and more people are starting to realize that connection.
Yeah, that's so encouraging. And like, I think it's interesting. You mentioned biohacking earlier, and there can be a version of that that's so isolating, right? Mm-hmm. And we're already living in such an isolated society where we're all just like on our phones and living in like a virtual world and not connecting genuinely. And I think you named it, that like part of going back to the basics isn't just the, breathwork and cold plunge and sauna. It's connection. It's human connection. It's realizing how disconnected we are and how detrimental that's been to our mental health and physical health.
Yeah.
And again, the techniques that you're teaching people allow people to be able to recognize where they are disconnecting from that place of shame, from depression, from anxiety, and be able to choose to go toward actually co-regulation or healing connection instead. So wonderful. Well, Alex, before we wrap, do you have any final words for aspiring entrepreneurs, current entrepreneurs, anyone who's in the wellness industry, who might be wondering like, how do I build a brand here? Like, how do I turn my why, into that how and what?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Listen to your own voice. And if you can't hear it, use tools that resonate with you to start hearing it, whether that's meditation, sitting in silence, whether that's cold plunge, breath work, sauna, just being able to hear your own voice and your own like authentic voice that's not clouded by these judgments or these parts of yourself that might not be helping you out, is really, really important. So I think learn to listen to your own voice, tap into your intuition, trust yourself, and be in alignment with that. And that won't ever steer you in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Then no matter what it looks like, exactly.
No matter
what
like,
challenges you come up against, like it will still feel authentic. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex. It was so great chatting with you today.
Thank you.